morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to a fantastic Wednesday and another edition of the Nudelberg Daily Huddle. Although I will be the only actual Nudelberg on the show today, and we have switched up the schedule. Normally Lori joins us on Mondays. She's here with us on a Wednesday, and excited to have you in the co-pilot seat, Lori. How are you? Tell me something.
How about that? I am great. And it feels weird to be on Wednesday, actually. Like I'm so used to starting my week in the huddle. I was talking to somebody yesterday and they were like, we missed you Monday. I go, oh, but I'll be on tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I love it.
All good. Celebrated Mike's birthday last weekend over in Marco. And
was he 26 now?
20. Yeah, he'd love you for that one, Mark.
That's awesome.
We don't talk about the numbers anymore. We gave up the numbers after a while.
So what does the birthday celebration look like?
You know, for us, I don't know. You know, we've all done the club things and the party things. Sure. For us, it's going over to Marco or somewhere just relaxing and being with family. We had dinner with the kids. So that's really what it's all about.
I've kind of taken to this idea of the Ritz on Key Biscayne, which I've visited a few times because of my father-in-law. We love that hotel. There's unbelievable restaurants around Key Biscayne that we like to frequent. And the pool there is great. And they have a kids pool and an adult pool. And I've always met good people when I go there. So like that's become like my image of what I want for my birthday is like just going to Key Biscayne for the weekend, eating good dinner, having good wine, sitting by the pool, like, you know, just that to me is I don't need to go far away. I don't need to go on a huge, crazy trip. Just awesome stuff. That's my idea of a birthday.
Agree.
And there's Steve Nudelberg. I was wondering, I wasn't going to like put him out there because I was like, man, if he wants to sleep, he was traveling all day yesterday. There's jet lag. He's up. He's joining.
Oh, no. So you missed it. He popped in the background thinking he was going to surprise, but he jumped right back out. He's like, no.
He was like, never mind. Shay, pop up the picture of them. So the boys are traveling. Jake and my dad are in Vegas. They are there to work with Shay. Who are they working with?
They're working with a company called Ad Media.
Ad Media. They're going to do a keynote presentation for them this morning. There they are last night. I'm assuming that they're eating in one of Tao's restaurants last night?
Last night was Tao, located in the Venetian.
That's awesome. And they are staying in the Cosmo. So if anybody's looking to assassinate the Nudelbergs, that is where you can find them. Is in the Cosmo.
You're putting a price on their heads?
I'm just saying, like I'm putting out all their business, where they're going to be, when they're going to be there, the itinerary. So like if anybody has a vendetta, I just made it very easy for them.
Listen, if you need the gun or the rifle, let us know. We got that too.
Yeah. John Malazzo, that is correct. The 5 a.m. wake up for them over there, which I'm sure they were up earlier because they were on East Coast time and all that. So awesome stuff. That's my favorite hotel. When my dad asked me like what the recommendation was or where they should stay, I said the Cosmo just because it's where I've stayed before. I've always enjoyed it there. My mom, who frequents there all the time, my mom and Jim go out there almost every year and they always stay there. Do you have a Vegas favorite?
You know, we like the Bellagio.
Okay.
I actually have only been there once. I went for a big birthday a few years ago and didn't want to party or anything like that and said, you know what? I've never been to Vegas. I want to go. To me, because I love the ocean movies. And so the Bellagio to me is just Vegas, right?
The mountains, right? Yeah.
Saw some shows, that Chris guy, The Magic, and Jennifer Lopez and some other stuff. And we're not big gamblers, but I do love the craps table. So spent a little time there. And so it's fun. Awesome. It's not somewhere I would probably go every year, but it's a fun time.
I feel like once you do it, you're kind of like, all right, I did it, saw it, you know, like unless you're a big gambler or like you really enjoy that kind of vacation.
Listen, you have to go to Vegas to afford a show these days. The tickets for Beyonce went on sale yesterday. I went on at like 10 in the morning. Couldn't find a ticket for less than $1,700. What the hell is going on?
It's high demand. She's coming here. I think she's going to be at the Hard Rock. I think is where she's doing.
Yeah, that's how much the tickets were.
Right. Yeah. And that's a small venue. So you got to think like that's got to be absolutely ridiculous to try to get there. One other just update. When I went to get my car serviced on Monday, right, I showed up early. I wanted to be one of the first cars in there to hopefully have the opportunity to get out. And I'm sitting in the service area, like waiting. I got my computer. I'm doing some work. And I know the GM, Bert Martinez, is the GM of Mercedes Pembroke Pines. And I see Bert out of the corner of my eye walk in, and he's walking around the service area, like straightening up the magazines, fixing the chairs, throwing away old papers and yesterday's papers. And I just had this thought, like, that's why that guy is successful. Like, there is no job too small for him. There's no detail that goes overlooked for him. And I would just like caught him in the moment. And he's like, why are you taking a picture of me? I was like, I'm going to put you on the huddle this week and talk about the fact that the GM of the dealership is walking through the waiting area, just tidying up the tiniest little details. Because it doesn't mean you should be doing it all the time. Like, if that's what you're making a priority, then obviously, you know, you've got your priorities out of whack. But as the leader of the organization, to be seen just doing some of the small jobs and some of the small details, really cool.
I think it's actually critical. And it's so funny because whenever we have an event, I stay, throw on my flip-flops or sneakers. We have a board with all the different tasks that need to be done to break down. Yeah. And I'm grabbing tasks, and Robin, who's our event director, she'll be like, you need to go home. And I go, no, I need to stay and help everybody else. Right. Yeah. Because that's just, I think that's just what you do.
Servant leadership mindset, right?
Yep.
I love that. Awesome.
Can I share one thing with you guys?
Yeah.
So I know I text you about it, but for the women.
Oh wait, no, that'll be the start of the next segment.
Okay.
One other update that we have to talk about, just because we're sports fans and we have to do it. Yes. Congratulations to LeBron James last night for passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for becoming the NBA's all-time leading scorer. I think it's hard to argue that there's anything left for that man to do that would not solidify him as the all-time greatest basketball player of all time. So if you haven't been paying attention to what he talks about and what he does, of course, he talks about process all the time, talks about discipline to doing the work day in and day out. And for a guy who's been expected to be great from the time that he was 16, unbelievable accolades for him.
Yeah. Got to give it to him.
Let's wake it up.
Let's get to some wake up music, and then we'll come back and we're talking about some current events that Lori wants to talk about. Wake up, everybody. Get up, get up, get up, get up. Wake up. Come on, come on. Wake up, everybody. Teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen what you have to say. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. No more about the thinking, time of thinking ahead. Come on.
Oh, you just gotta love that music. It gets you going in the morning.
Right. Always good to start the morning with Teddy and all those smiles and the great intro that we have going on. So you were at a panel discussion this weekend. When was it? Was it Friday?
Last week, Thursday or Friday? Thursday, I think it was.
And you had an experience happen that we're going to talk about because I think it's a good conversation to be had. And I want to unpack it a little bit with you. So go ahead and tell the story.
Awesome. And I think it's good for both men and women to hear it. So I'm sitting there listening to the panel, and the moderator is a middle-aged Black man. And the four panelists are, I'd say, middle-aged white women. And he makes, he's doing the little introduction, and then he says, now let me introduce you to our panel of beautiful ladies. And I thought, panel of beautiful ladies. Not the experts on childcare, education, childhood education, because that's what it was about. Not, our distinguished guests, panelists, beautiful ladies.
So let me ask you a question before you go any further. How old was this guy?
He was I would say early 40s, mid 40s.
Early 40s. Okay. Do you think he said that maliciously?
I do not.
Absolutely not. And I want to get to that point. Because he said something that offended you. Did it or did it not offend you? Or
it isn't that it offended me. It made me think, would I stand up there and introduce the panelists as four sexy, handsome men?
And I would say it probably depends on context, number one,
True.
right?
This
Like
was a
if we were
professional,
there,
you
right?
had
If we were there
elected.
for like a dating or like, you know, a date auction, you may present it that way.
Right. But this was elected officials. This was business leaders. This was community leaders. You had one House representative who was one of those panelists.
Right.
And I'm thinking, you just said that this doesn't make sense to me. And I just felt like, and by the way, I do not think it was malicious.
Right.
And I do not think it was intentional to, and it
But
didn't
it
hurt my
drives the
feelings.
point home of in his brain, right? And it's just a part of the, you know, the it's what's woven into the fabric of culture is that that's an acceptable way and that's an endearing way to introduce women, right? And it doesn't even cross his mind that it may be minimizing to them, or it may be demoralizing to them, or it may be offensive to them, because even though it's a compliment and he means it in the right way, he has diminished all of the accolades and all of the work that it's taken them to get to that panel, right?
Right. And, you know, I thought if there was just one man on that panel, he would not have introduced them that way. Right. If there were 3 women on the panel and 1 man, he wouldn't have said that. He would have said, welcome our guests, right? Or our panelists, right?
Sure.
Or something more generic. And it did not offend me, but it just caught me. And I wanted to bring it up because I wanted everyone to hear that while maybe it's not offensive, you know, I know he was just probably trying to be complimentary.
Sure.
But I think it's important to be conscious of how we introduce, right? The difference between how he would have done it if there was just 1 man versus,
Sure.
right, all 4 men versus 4 women. And I just, again, there are women who would be offended. I didn't take it that way. It just was interesting to me, right?
Well,
and caught my attention.
And I just think I think you have to talk about it. If you don't talk about it, then it doesn't, you know, it doesn't shift the mindset, or it doesn't make people more aware of it. And I think you said it really well, where he wasn't malicious. It wasn't something that he was trying to be offensive or minimizing, but he's unaware. And if you're unaware, then you have no chance at being part of the solution or the change.
Correct.
And I think that's what people have to realize, is that the world changes. We change as a society. We change as an organization. We change as a people. We change as individuals. And you're either going to be a part of that change or you're going to get left behind. And if you're not a part of that change, then you run the risk of running into scenarios like that. Like I read a great McKinsey article yesterday about the shift in B2B sales and what buyer behavior looks like now and what people really want from B2B brands and how they want more of a B2C experience. They want personalized touch points. They want to engage on their own time and not on the time of the seller or of the organization. And it drove home with all these points. I wrote about it today because they put a stat in there that I thought was absolutely mind-blowing. They said that 83% of people who receive cold calls immediately block the number after getting it. Yeah. Which is like, whoa. Yeah.
But I can't help but I have to call out Jay Katari. Yeah. Jay, there's not too many more confident women than me and strong women than me. And again, I didn't take offense to it, but then I have to go back. I have to go down to Jamie's comment about being self-aware, not only being self-aware, but also being aware of who's your audience. Okay. My comment about this has nothing to do with that. I felt offensive. I would love being called beautiful all day long. However, if I am there to present and deliver, right, information that is at an intellectual level, and again, being aware, if you wouldn't introduce a man that way, then why would you introduce a woman that way? That's all I'm suggesting, that we need to be aware of our audience. And
and I kind of want to go to the point that it's not that you wouldn't introduce a man that way. It's more so that it wouldn't be your default, or that it wouldn't just be the thing that rolled off your tongue, right? Like if I had a panel of House representatives and senators and former presidents, I would not introduce that panel as these handsome men, that wouldn't be a thing that would naturally come to my mind. Whereas when they're women, in the reality of what's been woven into my brain and in our culture, that does become a natural. And so I think, while I agree with you, Jay, like there's plenty of people that don't get bothered by it, doesn't necessarily make it right. And just because it's not wrong doesn't make it right. And I think as we continue to push for equality, like you could take it to, if you look at the way African Americans and Black people talk about Black history now, they're not promoting Black History Month. If you even look at ESPN, it's Black History Always, right? Because while people may have thought that creating Black History Month was a good idea, as we've moved forward as a society, they want equality. It should be Black history all the time. It should be woven into the historical and the, and the timeline of how we learn about history, learn about it all together, as opposed to saying, well, here's the month that's devoted to Black history.
Right.
So I think,
and by the way, if he would have said, today we have this distinguished panel of, women experts in the early childhood education field. And by the way, you know what?
we're all
They're
beautiful.
pretty, they're smart and they're pretty, right? You could have done it a different way if you wanted to be cute, right? You could have done it a different way. I would say that. I would introduce a panel of men and say, you know what? Not only are they smart and strategic and visionaries,
sure,
but they're good-looking guys too, right? Or whatever, or they're great in sports, but give them their due for the reason they're there. And I guess
I love that my dad's not in the hot seat or not on the show right now, because he says amen to Jay Katari, who says we're dissecting this too much. And I would challenge both of you guys that if we don't talk about it and make it a point to be understood, then the behavior doesn't change. And if the behavior doesn't change, then nothing really happens. We just make a point about it and, hey, it's important in this moment, but it doesn't actually change the day-to-day behavior. But I do want to move on, because we do have a good conversation that I want to talk about that we're going to pull out of the news. So let's go to some morning motivational music. Then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about de-influencing.
I feel the earth move under my feet. I feel the sky tumbling down. I feel my heart start trembling whenever you're around. Oh, baby, when I see your face, mellow as the month of May. Oh, darling, I can stand it when you look at me that way. I feel the earth move under my feet. I feel the sky tumbling down. I feel my heart start to trembling whenever you're around.
Absolutely love it. Fantastic. Great morning motivational music. Thank you, Jake, for that. All right, moving on to the next topic of de-influencing. Did you read the article? Did you get some takeaways from it?
Yeah, I did. I think a couple of things. One is about the consumption part of de-influencing.
Well, can you define it for people who don't know what we're talking about when we're saying de-influencing?
So let's see. I would probably not do it justice. So the hashtag D and sparkling.
I'll give it to everybody.
Yeah, you give it, because I can talk about it, but I can't give you
this movement of hashtag de-influencing is influencers who have accepted, payment to be brand ambassadors for people that weren't necessarily using the products or didn't necessarily believe in the products, but got paid by TikTok or got paid by Instagram or got paid by somebody to promote these products, have come out and spoken out against it. Like, hey, this is what I've done. And they're almost like a confessional of telling people, like, hey, be careful what you listen to, because while all of these people with huge audiences may be saying that they're using these products or pushing these products on you, they might not be actually using them, and they're not necessarily being truthful with what they're doing. So what's some of your takeaways about that?
I think for me, the biggest takeaway was for the influencers themselves is about their brand,
Right.
right? If you're going to put yourself out there, and in some cases they're getting paid to promote,
Most cases they're
right?
getting paid to
So,
produce, which
but
is not new, right? Like this is not new behavior. Like
no,
how many does anybody really believe that like Shaq was driving a Buick? Like he did a long time where he was their brand ambassador, but when you watch like MTV Cribs, there was no Buick to be found in his driveway, right? Like there was
right.
Phantoms and there were Maybachs and there was every different kind of car imaginable, no Buicks. So like
Yeah.
it's not like this is a new behavior, I would say, but I do think it's different because of the way that it's being presented to people. These influencers are more of our peers, are more, and I think this affects the Gen Z and millennial far more than it does the Gen X, because we grew up with social media, or social media was more indoctrinated to us at a young age. So we grew up watching, or we've been around these people for a long time, and there's more trust in that. Where I think as some of the older generations look at it and don't necessarily get their influence from those people.
Well, I mean, listen, even though there was Shaq, years ago, or you could use any example, driving a Buick, before you bought the Buick, you went to drive the Buick, right? So you got to make the decision based on the product and your experience.
Right.
Now with social influence, right? You're buying it off the internet. You have no idea if what they're telling you is true or not.
Exactly.
And so I think there's a lot of people who have bought products like that, and they're sitting on some shelf or they're in the garbage somewhere, right? Because they didn't do or what they weren't what they want. But I think if that happens enough time with the same influencer or with influencers in general, you may not go back and follow their advice.
Into the point that I want to make is you don't have to have 1 million followers to be an influencer, right? Like everybody has the opportunity to be a center of influence within their own network. And so like where Jonathan Aaron says, wait a minute, were you paid to use the 5-minute journal? No, but I promote it because I use it, right? Like I promote F45 because I go there and I enjoy the workouts and it works for me. So I think, whether or not I have influence on the people around me, I have no idea, but I try to be of service to the people around me by letting them know what are the things that I do, what are the things that I use, what are the things that I get value from, so that maybe they have the opportunity to get the same value from me, which I think is what should be about building your brand. The influencers that I trust in the fitness world, where I get my information, they show me using and doing the things that they preach. They show me meal prepping. They show me what their meals are. They're, putting on their stories, all of the things that they're doing, which builds the trust with me, which goes, okay, maybe I'll try that. And so I don't think that it's about necessarily being an influencer and having all of these followers and getting paid to do it. It's what's the motivation behind it and why are you doing it?
Well, and I think that's it. I mean, my brother-in-law opened a restaurant over in Georgia, and at the beginning, when he was trying to get the name out because it was brand new, it was a new concept, he invited social influencers to come and taste the food, experience the restaurant, and all of that. So when they did post, right, it was coming from,
right,
I tried this. This is fantastic. You
right.
have to go do that. And I think it's shifted a little bit. I think that still is going on. However, so many of them now are getting paid that it doesn't matter to them whether they like the product or not. So they're getting paid to promote it. They promote it, and right,
which ruins all of the trust. So like the people that have built their brands or built their careers on being an influencer and then have gone that way, they've broken all of the trust, which to me is the only thing that matters when it comes to your brand. Right. And I think that was a big point of the McKinsey article with cold calling, is that you have to understand that every interaction with your brand now helps you either build or hurt that relationship. And so as soon as you do something that is detrimental to the relationship with that person, you've hurt the brand for who knows how long, maybe forever, because of the interaction that you created. So I think we have to be so aware of how we build brand through every interaction of what we do. Talked about this yesterday on a coaching call. It's why I use video. What am I trying to accomplish with my brand? I'm trying to show up differently, trying to build relationship, and I'm trying to convey the feeling that I can pass from me to somebody else. There's no other tool that allows me to do that. And oh, by the way, it gets to show up to them whenever they're ready to watch it or listen to it or have it. So it gives people the opportunity to engage when they want to engage. And it also gives them the opportunity to receive the message the way I want it to be received. So I think as we continue to move forward and we talk about building brand and we talk about all the different tools that we use, we've got to be aware of it. And we went way overtime today.
I was just going to say, I think we're overtime.
Well done, Lori. Thank you for being a great co-host as always. Loved the conversation. Always loved the opportunity to ruffle some people's feathers. So
hey, that's what it's all about.
Have a fantastic Wednesday. Super excited to have Jesse Dykes on the show tomorrow for a young entrepreneurs huddle. So make sure to tune in for that. We will see you guys. Thank you, Lori. Let's get down to business.
Have a good day.
Please don't worry about me. I'm about to let my heart speak. My friends keep telling me to leave this. So let's get down to business. Let's get down to business.